Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'm the Gray Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Thursday, May 16th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread. First card, we are starting our day off with today, my friends. I am not surprised to see this. We're in Taurus season. We've been having these cards coming up like hotcakes. I was even saying yesterday, some of the cards we can often see during this period. I'm never surprised to see the 8 of Pentacles. Resilience, nose to the grindstone right now has been really key. This energy right now, it's slow. It's a slow, heavy energy, but there's a lot of direction. There's a lot of purpose. There's a lot of momentum that is existing behind this energetic signature. And we see that this is a lot of that conviction and commitment in terms of relationality to what you are planning on working on and what you're doing right now. So especially in the realms of anything that you're working on today, this is actually saying that if you're feeling any of that frustration or any of those like feelings that were coming through yesterday, being able to channel them into productive spaces and places is going to be very key. This is a continuation on a lot of that energy that we saw that was happening over the last few days. If you'll recall, we actually saw this card just a few days ago with the activation point of the Ace of Wands that came through both in its upright and also in its reversal, which means that not only are there a lot of new insights or breakthroughs that are occurring right now, but a lot of that immediate implementation of those plans, of those ideas into energetic practice. Masculine, feminine energy in the heart of the divine union frequency right now. This is more of that feeling. Some of these breakthroughs that we see are occurring. They're not necessarily even happening so much in the tangible space. These are happening very much in the sense of something that you may be feeling like you were carrying for a great deal of time. This ability to carry something, not even necessarily let something go, but to be able to carry something in a way that you haven't before. It is allowing for a facility or a productivity. It almost feels like the breakthrough is almost creating that sense of energetic easement. And that's why we see this card coming into play today. Well, for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into the divine union frequency, this is a little bit more of a challenging space because what did we identify was occurring over the last few days? That ability to integrate the wounds of another into one's own self. It is a bit more challenging and triggering because while we see that the energy deep in the heart of the divine union is almost intentionally doing some of that energetic unpacking, via the choice of understanding the self more clearly. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now are doing this from a place or state of the energetic productivity in moving forward deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency. And even now, one of the things that we saw that was even a bit frustrating was for a lot of the energy, that ability of identifying and feeling some of those triggers. There was a moment yesterday that we even saw that it was just that sense of saying the only solution to feeling some of that frustration was the energetic element of time. Some things just need time to be able to be navigated. And one thing that we articulated, one of the reasons some of those triggers were coming up right now is if these are energies that are taking each other's insecurities and wounds and making them their own, You've had a lot of time with your wounds, right? You've had a lot of time to sit with something. You've had a lot of time to process something. These are energies in healing. So they can navigate their own wounds very adeptly. It's when you give them to another, it almost feels like the re-expression because someone hasn't had all of that time to navigate through something. So it takes a little bit more time for them to become adjusted and accommodated to it. Those energies are effectively putting that practice into play today by just, again, feeling that facility, feeling that sense of something that is getting easier as it goes. While for masculine and feminine energy right now in separation, this is a lot of slow and steady wins the race right now. I need to stress, even with the new energetic connections that are being made at this time for individuals in separation, there is a slowness. There is a marked slowness that is occurring right now that is making these energies feel like something is energetically different. Why? Because these energies are not utilizing or trying to move towards each other with that sense of urgency. One of the signs or mile markers of energy that is moving with a lot of healing has to do with that level and degree of care, of caution, of taking something energetically slowly. This is like that slow dance energy. This is that campfire. This is that building of momentum, if you will, because these are energies that are almost trying to identify and articulate whether they feel that sense of being energetically in alignment prior to being able to facilitate or make anything that feels more like a passionate connection. These are energies that have learned a lot of the energetic lessons about what could potentially happen when you feel like you're not in energetic alignment with someone and then you make a passionate connection. That's where we see that a lot of these energies are working to recover from. For masculine, a lot of that work has been making sure to be very articulate and clear in relationality to finding one's own ability to be vulnerable to feminine enough that you can express your manifestation goals. Allowing those moments of recognizing that if the feminine rejects anything that you would like to manifest, that's not a reflection or rejection of one's own self, so much as that moment of recognizing that there is an alignment in relationality to what you seek and aspire going forward. For feminine, this ability of being one's authentic sense of self, not wanting to put that fake guise in front of the masculine. This is the feminine energy that's trying to show the feminine's own insecurities towards the masculine, having that point or ability of accepting one another prior to building the energetic connection. Both of these energies are moving in this way because they're trying to facilitate and continue on their healing journey with energy that is doing same. So even now, that ability of doing so, pushing one's own envelope, coming into a point that feels like it's uncomfortable. Well, what happens when you challenge yourself and you do something that is uncomfortable, but also good for you? Repetition. Often it gets easier as you go. And so a lot of this energy is putting that practice or that methodology into play right now. Second card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here High Priestess in its reversal. Now, this is a lot of that path work that we see even now, a little bit more challenging for the feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Specifically because feminine energy moving with this pathwork of purpose is moving very slowly. They're moving very intentionally. A lot of this feminine energy is still on the process of healing from experiences from the past. That sometimes creates that sense or space of the feminine energy, questioning their own self, overthinking, potentially getting too caught in their own headspace, right? What is the feminine energy doing right now in separation to navigate through this? And this is even how we see that a lot of the feminine energy right now is building upon their own commitment to themselves. The feminine energy is recognizing their own tendency to do so. Right? So if this is feminine energy that is feeling any of those doubts and fears cropping up, this is feminine energy that's almost being extremely present in the moment that they are experiencing and encountering that, and almost reminding themselves. They're looking for those patterns. They're reminding themselves that even that point isn't necessarily a negative, because the feminine energy identifies and recognizes that their own ability to question things, their own ability to move with a point of caution, that is the amplification of the care that the feminine feels, that almost amplifies their own healing journey. Masculine energy in separation right now, you may be identifying and articulating this or experiencing this on the part of the feminine, because if this is a feminine that is trying to show their own true expression of self to you, and you're seeing some of that self-doubt, you're seeing some of that questioning of themselves going through. This is the masculine. These are energies that they're building bridges based on past experiences. This is a masculine energy that isn't taking that work as a moment of identifying or taking something personally. Rather, this is the masculine energy that is almost reaffirming and articulating to the feminine that they recognize and understand enough about their own journey, that they understand why the feminine energy moves forward with such a heightened degree of care and caution. So even now, through this moment, we see that for a lot of the energy in separation, even if these are moments of the feminine feeling some of those insecurities or vulnerabilities rising up, it is feeling like a moment that is articulating and building through a point of empowerment through it. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, coming into divine union frequency, this is more of navigating some of those hurdles and taking on the wounds of another. Remember that the masculine energy is not only navigating, if these are energies that are coming closer, they're learning about each other's vulnerabilities. They're learning about each other's insecurities. Masculine is not trying to change the feminine energy. Masculine is not taking those insecurities and vulnerabilities personal. They're almost integrating them into their own experience. And that's almost something that is hard, because that moment of seeing the feminine energy insecure or weak about something, it doesn't feel so much of a vulnerability that the masculine is identifying in the feminine, so much as it creates that feeling of frustration in articulating and amplifying the feeling that someone, like, that a wound was created in the feminine at some point that put that insecurity or vulnerability there in the first place. So what is the masculine energy doing right now to show or even navigate experiencing that from within? They're not trying to reopen the wound by trying to attack it or move towards it. They are facilitating in this way, in reaffirming their own commitment to the feminine, in saying, and this is where we left this energy yesterday, saying, I'm going to show you that what you're carrying is not something that you need to fear here. That ability of, again, letting time kind of be a vector and an implement here. These are energies that are not thinking about the immediate moment. They're thinking about the long term. So this is almost the masculine energy working right now and facilitating and just navigating in a way that the actions speak louder for the words. And this is even immediately healing a lot of the feminine energy, because if this is the feminine energy that has given the insecurity to the masculine, this is almost the feminine energy that's almost like apologizing in the process, because this is the feminine energy that says, I know that you would never do those things to me. I know that I don't need to fear those things, but yet I still carry them. And this is the feminine that almost immediately starts to feel that ability to heal something, because they see that even the way that the masculine energy navigates that is an expression of how much they can trust the energy that they are moving into divine union with. While for masculine and feminine energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this has to do more with that sense of energetically processing a lot of these breakthroughs that may be occurring as it relates to old, long-held wounds, or unpacking some type of deep, long-held energetic trauma. What did we see and saw that the masculine energy was doing right now, that it was allowing that lightening of an energetic burden? They're recognizing that something that they may have held from long in the past that they experienced as a feeling of lack, something that created a wound because they felt like some kind of maternal feminine energy was rejecting them. That ability of having or building empathy and understanding the feminine experience is now articulating such that that energy is almost able to look back with a sense or space of empathy, right? And what happens in those moments that we feel like we were energetically hurt because of the wounds of another? It doesn't condone. It doesn't make something energetically right, but the understanding of the why often allows us to facilitate new pathways of productivity and healing. So we see that a lot of that is occurring right now for the masculine in recognizing and readjusting their own experience from the past in the externalization of a wound that they were carrying within, so much as a point of empathy without towards the individual that may have inadvertently hurt someone because they were in effect hurting themselves. While for feminine energy, this same work is occurring, but the problem with some of the energy that's experiencing this from the feminine portion is if these are spaces and places wherein the feminine energy feels like they experienced a wound very early because someone was trying to move them off of their own highest version of self, you can understand how that can bring up a lot of repressed feelings of frustration, of anger, of resentment, in feeling like someone was trying to move you into something that feels like it was more accommodating and easy for them, as opposed to like that true sense of self for your own person. So this is a little bit more energetic unpacking right now for the feminine, because this is the feminine almost deep diving and exploring that even more, because this is the feminine energy that almost feels like they're trying to rebuild the connection with who they were at the time that occurred in the first place. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Third card in our 5-card spread for today. Not surprised to see this card coming out. Ever since that Scorpio full moon, we've had this card popping up like hotcakes. We've got here our moon card in its reversal. It was out yesterday in the same position. Masculine and feminine energy. That sense, these energies right now, why are these energies deep in the heart of the divine union unpacking something from so long ago? Something that might not necessarily even have an ability to activate on in the present. It's for the sense of understanding. If these are places or spaces wherein masculine or feminine has been holding any guilt, any doubt, any fear, any parts of themselves that they didn't want to look at, this is the energy deep in the heart of the divine union, almost committing themselves to shining a light on those places and spaces for better understanding of the self. Because how can one come in contact with one's highest version of self if you do not have full perception on all aspects of one's own person? So this is a lot of that energy deep in the heart of the divine union that's going on that pathwork of exploration, simply for the sake of understanding the self in the process, and not having those moments or experiences wherein, especially for masculine, if there was energy of the feminine that was wounded and hurt, that inadvertently hurt you, that commitment of not wanting to inadvertently express a wound that you cannot see that you're carrying on those around you is reason enough. Feminine is also doing a lot of that work right now in the heart of the divine union frequency. These are energies that are not even doing this for the sake of their own person, because it is hard work, but they're doing it to become their best version of self, both for themselves and also to commit themselves in not repeating those cycles that may have harmed them in the past. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, a lot of this work that we're seeing at this time has a lot to do with the energy coming into divine union. The difficulty about this is it doesn't feel like it is so far apart, right? This doesn't feel like these things happened so long ago. A lot of this energy of coming into the divine union frequency, these breakthroughs are potentially happening on things that did not happen all that long ago, because these are energies that are potentially just entering the divine union for the first time. It does have a different reactivity point in potentially masculine and feminine energy experiencing that. For the masculine energy, as we said, that feeling of overprotectedness towards the feminine energy. What is the masculine energy reaffirming to themselves, even if they're feeling some of that overprotectedness? This is the masculine energy that is navigating their own doubts in relationality to recognizing that the feminine energy is not the type of energy that needs to be protected. This is energy that's on the healing journey, right? This is feminine energy that's the masculine almost building their own sense of energetic trust in the feminine's own ability to navigate through the wounds that they've been carrying, that the masculine energy is only just now experiencing or seeing. And that's why the energy feels so impactful, because this is almost a masculine energy. If there was like a personal harm or personal hurt that the feminine expressed the masculine, this is almost the masculine energy saying, I'm taking what happened to you personally. I'm taking a lot of your past experiences personally, because now you are mine energetically. And that's the masculine energy that's almost trying to release some of that by recognizing and identifying that need not to allow that to create a space wherein the masculine feels like they're not carrying something in the way that the feminine aspires and desires them to, but almost allowing that clarity, almost letting that communication continue to build that bridge in the masculine, saying, I'm going to reaffirm in the present that is not the case, rather than becoming overly reactive about something that I'm now taking energetically, personally on my own self that occurred to you in the past. While for feminine energy, that same path work is effectively occurring here, because if this is feminine energy that's experiencing these moments, they're feeling that sense of security and support around the masculine, that clarity of understanding that arises or arrives when you come into the divine union frequency, it can feel very overwhelming, because this is almost the feminine energy that feels like they're getting insights on their own path work that they couldn't even see at the time that they were experiencing them. So this is why we see to a certain extent that the feminine energy is going through that moment of questioning, because this is almost the feminine energy that's looking back on their recent past with that sense of understanding. And it may sometimes feel that moment of frustration and confusion, because that's that reminder that while hindsight is 20/20, hindsight is always a little faulty, because we can never have the perception of the present in the past, right? So this is the feminine potentially navigating any of those failure points and being unable to see something by almost reminding oneself that you cannot hold yourself accountable for something that you could not see prior to being able to energetically see or experience it. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is in separation, this is a lot of that breakthrough, that same breakthrough that's occurring right now for energy that's coming into divine union is happening in separation. The difference here has to do with the energetic slowness around circumstances or situations. Feminine energy in separation, even if these are new connections, feminine energy is moving very slowly for good reason, because this is feminine energy that is still working on that pathwork of trusting their own self, trusting their own intuition. If these were spaces and places wherein the feminine is in separation because they feel like they were trying to heal something that was outside their own self, we see even now that that feminine energy is moving with a lot of slowness and determination, wanting to feel that sense of absolute confidence prior to beginning any new energetic connections. So there may be a lot of communication that is occurring during this time, particularly in the realm of new possible romantic or even friendship connections, to see and to assess whether there is that feeling of energetic consistency. Because even now we see that some of these energies, they're feeling some energetic excitement, but they're pulling back, right? They're bringing in some of that Taurus energy at this time, because this is the energy that's getting excited about the possibility or potentiality of a connection, but they're almost having that anxiety or fear of not wanting to get ahead of themselves. For the masculine energy that's in healing right now, that same pathwork may be occurring, though in a different way, because we see even now, if this is masculine energy on the healing journey, if you're finding and experiencing a feminine that has that point of hesitation, remember when we talked about that fact of the present moment being the space and place where you can activate upon any of the regrets in the past? This is almost the masculine energy that's come into that journey of understanding the feminine self to such a degree that you can almost recognize and understand why you may see that trepidation on the part of the feminine, because this is the feminine energy that's working very avidly to make sure that there is that sense or that point of feeling true authenticity in relationality to what is being expressed by the masculine, versus the masculine potentially at times trying to come towards the feminine from a place that feels more like they're utilizing or navigating the feminine energy as a means to an end. So this is why we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy in separation, that pathwork of determination, that feeling, if the feminine is hesitant, not letting that feel like you're taking it energetically personally, but almost understanding why the feminine energy may be in that moment of hesitancy. That is almost a reaffirming of masculine energy, how far you've come on your own journey in coming into contact with your own feminine energy by being able to build that point of empathy and understanding as to all of the challenges and hurdles that the feminine energy may have experienced in the past, which may lead them to questioning their own sense of intuition or their own sense of desire in relationality to building new connections. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today. And how are these energies navigating forward through that? Consistency and honesty. More consistency and more honesty. These are energies that are building bridges prior to making energetic connections. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here, and that's beautiful. There we go. That's what we need to see. For masculine energy on that healing journey, having the feminine energy, the most important thing that we see that the masculine energy is receiving right now, if in separation, is not just a feminine energy that is hesitant or withdrawn, but a feminine energy that is able to articulate upon their doubts, their fears, their anxieties. This is not masculine coming into connection with feminine that feels like a feminine that is projecting that outwards. They're not utilizing that emotionality in such a way that it feels like it's subjecting another to with the experience of the self. The masculine is feeling breakthroughs right now in the energetic connection that they're making with feminine. So far of a feminine being able to articulate upon those anxieties, being able to articulate upon those doubts, being able to articulate upon those fears. And for the masculine energy that may be building forward in this way, building that authentic connection with the feminine that's able to amplify and articulate with themselves in such a degree, that's almost a masculine feeling that sense of security that's occurring right now, even in the new energetic connections that they're making, because that's the masculine that starts to feel safe with a feminine that is resilient enough to be able to articulate their needs to the masculine in such a way that the masculine feels confident that they're not going to inadvertently overstep or cross a boundary with a feminine that they don't know is there, right? That moment of being able to feel like that, this is a lot of energy building new connections in separation, but feeling that, like I want to say, that easement point, that clarity that feeling of something being energetically easier, because these are energies in healing that are working on facilitating the lessons from the past. And while those lessons may be difficult, they're experiencing the breakthrough of pushing their own envelopes. While for masculine, feminine energy, again, having that moment, not just allowing oneself to become withdrawn, but almost articulating upon how you're energetically feeling, bringing that sense of honesty into play. This is the feminine that's challenging themselves, because this is a feminine energy that may recognize that in the past they would have been more accommodating. They would have been more tight-lipped. They would have been more adaptable. But this is the feminine energy that's pushing their own boundaries and challenging themselves in the way of saying, if I feel like something, I can't just withdraw. I have to articulate on why I am energetically withdrawing. So we see even now a lot of that ability of the feminine to utilize their voice, to express uncertainty, to express hesitation, rather than just allowing themselves to kind of like go inwards, right? That's that moment of taking the energetic boundary. What did we say the energy and separation was doing right now? Taking the energetic boundary and turning it into a standard. Taking the boundary and turning it into a standard. So we see even now that is this is the expression of the work that we've recognized was the breakthrough point of the feminine over the last few weeks, coming into application in the tangible space with new connections to masculine. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is the most challenging position for this energy right now, because while this work is all being facilitating and helping for breakthroughs for the divine union frequency, for energy deep in the heart of the frequency, for the energy that's just entered the frequency, these are things that feel like they're much more open wounds. This is a moment of observation and clarity on something that you may not necessarily have seen in the same way prior to entering the divine union frequency. And for feminine, there's that moment of potentially vacillating between these 2 points. If this is feminine energy who's come into the divine union frequency, and suddenly their perspective on everything that happened prior to that moment, just shifted profoundly. It's no surprise that we see that the feminine energy may feel like they're vacillating back and forth between feeling energetically wounded and feeling empowered. Feeling energetically wounded and feeling empowered, because this is the energy that's like literally like the metronomes going like this as they try to land upon the clarity in terms of the way that they experience something from the past versus their perception of the present, right? They're trying to land upon that space or place. I told you, not getting overly righteous, but trying to figure out that place that feels like it can accommodate both of those modalities or mentalities. While for masculine and masculine energy, that's coming into divine union with feminine, that ability of carrying forth the wounds that the feminine may have brought into the divine union frequency, right? You are also carrying wounds. You're seeing the fact that the feminine is also taking them on, though it's a little bit easier for the feminine to take on those wounds of the masculine. Feminine may just be articulating more upon their advice or their experience based on that. If anything, this could be a lot of masculine energy that feels like they're getting a lot of insight on wounds that they're carrying from being with the feminine energy that's able to articulate and think about things in this fashion. This is also the masculine energy that is reminding themselves, what do we say? The masculine almost feeling overprotective around some of those wounds that they're now carrying on the part of the feminine. But what is the masculine energy saying to themselves so they don't inadvertently reopen a wound by addressing it in the way that the feminine wouldn't aspire or desire to carry it? This is the masculine reminding themselves and saying, this is a feminine. I need to do things. I need to carry the wounds the way the feminine aspires to carry them. This is that moment of saying, I need to affirm to the feminine that is that point. This is a feminine that can take care of themselves. This is a feminine that has that point of resiliency. And so even now there's that's building that communication channel, right? That's almost that affirmation of saying to the feminine or building that point of empowerment. Like this is almost masculine energy being like, there's the thing I want to do in this situation based on what you've told me, but this is like, but I want to let you know, like even that sense of saying to a certain extent, like this is how I'm carrying the wound. I'm going to tell you about the things that I would like to do with this wound. Like that's the masculine in a way, almost like reaffirming and building that bridge with the feminine by saying like, that is almost like that energy saying like you deserve better. And I am committing myself on the pathwork to showing you that is so. While for masculine and feminine energy, and for feminine energy to feel that vibration, that in itself feels like that deepening of the energetic connection. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this healing is happening like on a quantum level. And this is potentially healing something that happened way, way back in the past. For the feminine energy, again, why is the feminine energy doing that work? If these are places or spaces where the feminine was holding an insecurity that they suddenly realized wasn't an insecurity, that the insecurity was effectively created because they weren't fitting the standards that someone wanted them to aspire for their own needs and their own desires, the minute one recognizes that is the minute one is empowered by it. It's just releasing some of the bitterness and grief around it, because that's that moment of being like, oh, like that clarity point that's like, that sometimes creates that sense of like frustration, but immediately feels like it can be activated upon. For masculine, it's a bit harder to navigate some of these old wounds, because even being able to carry something and recognize and hold a point of empathy that something that may have occurred to you in the past had less to do with you being in a lack mentality or not, or deserving something, and more to do with the energy of a feminine that potentially wasn't in a space or place of being able to think clearly or do something because they were unhealed. That's almost that moment of recognizing and reaffirming one's own commitment to building a healthy relationship with the feminine. Because this is the masculine almost getting into a bit of a chicken and egg thing, and almost looking much like they are in the present context and saying, if I see a feminine energy that is hurt, I should not take it personally. I should try to move with curiosity as to what occurred that put the feminine energy in that vibration in the first place. So that curiosity coming into play, because that curiosity is at the heart of healing. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today, before we start getting clarification on these cards, is the Knight of Swords in its reversal. It's a little bit harder for the masculine if you're doing this level or degree of healing, because again, it doesn't, if these are moments that you're healing something simply by building empathy for the energy that may have created a wound in you, having been hurt enough that that wound was really just an extension of their own wound, that's not something that you can really change from within. It doesn't, it's frustrating for the masculine because it feels very vulnerable to accept that. It almost makes you wish you could be more like you almost wish you could go back and protect that part of yourself that experienced something in such a way. It's not like something you can go ahead and tangibly change. You can't run up to someone and be like, stop hurting people because you're hurt. Like you can't do that to a certain extent, right? Like that's a problem with being on the healing journey. Like I figured it out. You just need to stop hurting people because you're hurt. But that ability to identify that, it does create a stopping point, because what is the masculine energy doing right now in playing that chicken and egg game in terms of their own experience? Being like, if I experienced a wounded female that hurt me, and it was an expression of the wound that they were experiencing that I had in connection, I recognize that there may have been a masculine that hurt the feminine that created that wound in the first place. Thereby, by extension, becoming my best version of self is how I end that. It's how I break that chain. It's how I end that cycle. That I cannot go back and heal that energy from the past that may have created it, but I can do my best to prevent that energy from coming into a place of hurt from the beginning. And so that's the affirmation of a lot of the masculine energy, saying, I'm going to heal my own self. And by healing my own self, I heal the feminine, because the feminine will not be hurt by the masculine. And thereby, I am working to facilitate that change, even in understanding myself, to not allow that cycle to replicate and continue forward. While for feminine energy, this is the feminine energy saying, I am healing my own self. And that feels like more of something that the feminine needs to feel more empowered in doing, because this is the feminine energy saying, I need to recognize that when I move into being my own self, there's always going to be energy around me that doesn't feel like that's energetically convenient. There's always going to be energy that feels that one being in one's highest version of self doesn't really suit the energy like of one's own self, even to the sense of recognizing, feminine even recognizing that when someone is in a place of insecurity, seeing someone in their highest version of self can feel like it creates that sense of an energetic trigger. So this is the feminine almost becoming more resilient in that moment and saying, yeah, like when I come into that sense of being my own highest version of self, I have to recognize that I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I'm not going to let that sense of rejection create a wound in me. I'm just going to recognize that some people don't like my tea. So we see even now that that's the feminine coming into a point of empowerment on doing a lot of that work. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is not happening so much on the quantum level. This is something that you're just trying to deal with in like the practicality of circumstances or situations, because a lot of this could be the energy feeling the expression of the wounds that they're carrying. You're like carrying the wounds that someone else created in another. It typically creates some strong opinions in terms of where that energy, like what that wound derived or how that wound came to be, right? So even now we see that a lot of that processing has to do with releasing a lot of those feelings that are coming up that kind of create that space or place of wanting to be more reactive to the energy that you know is associated to creating those wounds in the first place. What are these energies doing? They're releasing that by not focusing on energy outside of the divine union frequency. They're reaffirming their own commitment and showing the energy that whatever caused those wounds is not something that could be experienced at the time of entering the divine union frequency. And it's reaffirming the pathwork in being able to show someone just how much you value and care for them. So even those wounds are becoming the tie that binds. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, a lot of the same is occurring right now. A lot of the same is occurring right now in separation. The energy right now coming into divine union and the energy in separation is having a lot of those same breakthrough points. And a lot of it is via V. I told you these energies, if these are new energetic connections that are occurring right now, these are energies that are moving very slowly because they're really working not to repeat the mistakes or the lessons of the past. Feminine energy, like not rushing in, like almost letting that consistency come into play, especially in relationality to building with masculine. This is the feminine energy that's navigating a lot of partnerships or future partnerships with a very loose hand. This is the feminine energy saying, I don't need to feel like I don't want to feel like I have to rush the process. Because if there's an energetic connection that makes me feel like I have to rush the process, that's a feminine energy saying, well, that seems like an indication of a connection that feels like I'm more of a means to an end. So this is how the feminine energy is having a bit more of that loose grip right now. And this may even be the feminine energy articulating upon their own uncertainty, their own point of caution. For the masculine energy that's experiencing that, having the empathy to the feminine, this is almost the masculine energy saying, I totally understand. I want to alleviate your doubts and fears. This isn't masculine energy that's moving toward, like the healed masculine energy isn't moving towards feminine, trying to I want to say, it's not the type of energy that's trying to push aside the doubts and fears, right? This is a masculine energy saying, I want you to understand. I want to show you that I not only understand where those doubts and fears come from, but I'm affirming in the commitment and showing you that I am healed enough, that I am not in the pathwork, that I'm going to make you have to repeat those energetic lessons. And for the healed masculine energy, it can feel very frustrating because the masculine energy is almost saying to themselves in the process, I know an unhealed energy would probably say that too, right? That's a masculine. And that's why the masculine is saying, I'm going to give you the thing that I know an unhealed masculine energy can't ever give, which is authenticity and time, consistency and time. Because that's the way we identify what is truly healed, is through the act of consistency and clarity. Consistency and clarity. I will continue to be clear. I will continue to be consistent. I will show you via V the consistency and clarity that this is not something that you are momentarily expressing that is going to go away. I'm going to show you that this is what you come to expect because this is how I truly move. Continue, and that is the masculine energy being on that pathwork of purpose, because that conviction is the masculine that's saying, I am that is me doing that, not even for you. That is me showing you who I am. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Seven of Pentacles in combination with our High Priestess in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Queen of Pentacles in its reversal. So, one of the things that's really empowering right now for I'm even seeing it, feminine energy in separation. This is feminine energy working through any of that insecurity. This is the feminine energy. And I need to stress this. What's beautiful about this is it's not the fact that the feminine energy is feeling something that is energetically different than what they may have felt in the past. But it is becoming a lot more productive, because do we see here a feminine energy that is feeling, questioning or doubting themselves, feeling a little unstable, and then just letting like everything kind of fall to the floor? No. The feminine energy is working through it. How's the feminine energy working through it? Are they becoming reactive? Are they becoming defensive? No, this is energy that's working on healing. This is feminine energy that's working on not subjecting others to how they feel, but expressing how they feel, building a bridge with the emotionality instead of creating a weapon. This is feminine energy that is articulating and communicating through. They're communicating through that insecurity. They're communicating through that uncertainty. They are taking something unproductive and they are making something productive. They are articulating from a point of needing and saying, what can become tangible that can allow for that expression of an insecurity to be alleviated? Because this is feminine energy that's healed enough to say, if I feel an instability point, when I'm building with masculine, it's not just enough to tell the masculine, I'm in a point of need, but to be able to articulate and amplify what it is that can be created or changed that would allow that to become a point of productivity. So we see even now that the feminine energy being able to do this, it is hard, it is challenging. But the feminine energy is building that sense of confidence enough with their own self to be able to do so. That is the space of the feminine energy that is in separation, that is working to heal. And not just allowing that anxiety to like come into that point of accommodation for everything, not letting it become a point of adaptability, but almost inquiring upon it, asking their own self what is being sought in that feeling that would create the sense of stability and energetic support. Via being able to express it to masculine, that can then fulfill that desire or that need. So for the masculine energy that is seeing that on the part of feminine energy, if in separation, this is a masculine energy almost feeling that wave of relief, because that's a masculine that almost sees an expression of a feminine that says, even when they feel uncertainty, it doesn't create confusion. This is a feminine energy that does that work of navigating their own confusion to be able to make it easier to facilitate a connection through it, as opposed to it just creating too much static to be able to not understand what is occurring. So we see even now that even in some of that, like working through some of those uncertainties and doubts and fears, it feels like it is productive. It feels like there is a representation of these energies even in separation, finding that pathwork of understanding via an energy that communicates in the same way and challenges themselves in the same way, that shows that possibility of building new, strong, energetic connections. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, you can see why the energy right now coming into divine union, this is much more challenging. Because for the feminine energy itself, experiencing something in a way that you haven't experienced it will immediately potentially, this is why sometimes when things are going really well for feminine, you're like, why do I feel so unstable in a moment that things are going well? Because if things feel like they're different because they're going well, and you haven't experienced before, you have to reconsider what that well was prior to this point. This is, I told you, a lot of feminine energy recognizing that they were holding some wounds on things as they come into divine union that they didn't even recognize and understand that they had wounds on in the first place, right? Sometimes you only experience the expression of what you've been carrying that's painful in the moment that you don't have to carry it anymore. So we see even now that for a lot of the feminine energy coming into the divine union in that way, that can create a moment that can almost feel very energetically triggering to have to navigate, because it's almost that moment of frustration of seeing something from the past and not realizing just how deep the wound went prior to the moment that you're feeling the relief of it. While for masculine energy, that of affirmation, that commitment, this is not masculine energy that's like focusing on any energy in the past and being like, let me tell you about like why what that was experienced was like so bad or blah, blah, blah. This is the masculine energy that's literally just, this is masculine energy, like I said, that has been putting in that practice of true healing, which is recognizing that the way we heal a wound isn't to become reactionary to it. It's to reaffirm our commitment of not having it occur again. So this is masculine energy that's putting that practice into play of consistency and clarity and communication. Consistency, clarity, and communication. Building that bridge with the feminine, even coming into divine union. And even in this moment, taking those wounds of the feminine onto their own. Not letting that be a focus of driving forward to be able to like navigate the place that the wound occurred, but almost reaffirming to the feminine and saying like, that is not something that will happen to you here. This is not something that you will experience here. That is the energy that's working in the present to help heal the wounds, not even by actively navigating them, by almost affirming via the action that they're in a place wherein the wound would never have occurred in the first place. While for masculine and feminine energy, that is in the heart of the divine union, this is the energy that's healing themselves to make sure that they never become the person that would have created those wounds in the counterpart in the first place. Right? This is the feminine energy. If seeing this, of seeing the masculine that's experiencing that, this is the feminine that like doesn't even feel like they need to do something in that way, because the feminine's just coming to understand it better as the masculine communicates the breakthroughs that they've been having, and vice versa. Both of these energies almost supporting and validating the breakthroughs of the work via the just not even like amplifying anything that needs to change, but almost reaffirming their own commitment to the work of healing, to be able to make sure that they're putting the stop to anything that feels like it was creating those wounds in the first place. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our High Priestess in its reversal and our Moon card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Tower card. I'm not surprised, with this type of energy, and this isn't necessarily, like, I have to stress this isn't necessarily a bad thing here, right? Some things come down and they create breakthroughs, okay? I'm going to say it again. The difference between a breakthrough and a crisis is all about how one carries it, right? For a lot of the energy in the heart of the divine union frequency, this reason that you're going on this journey within the self to understand something that happened to you in a way that you didn't understand it before is to prevent it from happening again. Sometimes you got to go back, right? Sometimes you got to go back and you have to face something. And that ability to face something and see it from a different perspective is the moment that you can look back and say, never again will that occur. My understanding of the self is such that now that I see something in such a way, I can prevent that from occurring again. But only via the understanding something completely can we work into that facilitation of saying that is the affirmation of not allowing something to propagate or perpetuate. So what are these energies in the divine union doing? They're going back to their own wounds, their own traumas, and saying, I got to look at this again. I'm not going to turn away from it. I'm going to look at it in a way I haven't seen it before. I need to understand it. And recognizing that a lot of the reason that some of those wounds occurred in the first place is because someone didn't want to see something within their own self, and that's how the wound occurred. So this is the affirmation of the energy saying, I'm not going to move away. I'm not going to have fear in facing my own self. I'm going to confront those parts of myself. I'm going to confront and understand myself, because the minute I understand myself is the minute I prevent myself from inadvertently harming others through the parts of myself that I do not want to face. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency right now, this can feel more challenging because this is the energy that feels like you're navigating and you're taking on those experiences that created these wounds in the first place, and they don't feel like they're so far away, right? It feels like a lot of it is still being processed. It's still being navigated. It's creating that feeling of unrest within the individual, having to take those wounds on for the first time. So we see even now that that's that moment, that even while that could be that full moment of like creating and receiving a breakthrough, it also can feel a little bit more like a little bit of that energetic crisis in having to take someone else's experiences and integrate them into your own, but not being able to effectively do anything about them, right? That can be that moment that can feel very hard when we come into understanding and building upon intimacy. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now, this is a lot of energy that's walking away from the past, with a lot of these new energetic connections, because I told you what is happening. What happens in the moment that we, not only are these energies, I got to say this, not only are these energies moving away from a past experience, they're moving away from a past experience, they're putting into practice the lessons that were learned from navigating those past experiences, and they're experiencing energetic breakthroughs. That's that moment that feels like you've broken through your own karmic cycle. You feel, again, you understand, you've gotten far enough away from something that you understand why you had to navigate away from it in the first place. It starts to build a new perspective, because something that you were holding on to is no longer something that you feel like you're missing or lacking. You're recognizing and feeling the value of the deep energetic lesson that it's given you, that is allowing for that point of breakthrough as you continue forward on this path. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Moon card in combination with our Queen of Wands. May I please, Moon card in its reversal in combination with our Queen of Wands in its upright. One card to clarify, clarification coming through right now with our Seven of Swords in its upright. I'm not surprised to see this, because it's a lot of this energy from the past rising back up. I told you, a lot of this energy, a lot of these new connections of energy and separation, building bridges. Experiences from the past are now building bridges in the present, and that's via the energetic lesson that one is choosing to bring forward into those new connections. So we see even now, like, it's not the fact that there aren't energies right now that are working through or building upon a lot of experiences that are taking shape based on the architecture of something that was learned from the past, but what is happening in the moment that you are utilizing the lessons from a past experience and you're feeling that energetic breakthrough. It immediately builds affirmation and resolve that one has created that sense of closure, because you're looking back at the past with the affirmation of not going back to it. Like, in a way, like your own ability to like take the lesson from it. Thank you for that gift. Your own ability to take that lesson from it and then put it into energetic practice, and then immediately see the difference or the change that it creates. Like, that is that moment of clarity, both in why one had to move away from something in the first place, because you might not have had that breakthrough point occurring in those past circumstances, and it reaffirms your commitment to carrying that energetic lesson forward, because these energies are not trying to go back to the places that created those lessons. They're getting validation as to why they had to move away from them in the first place. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union. This feels more triggering, because these are not energies that want to go back to past experiences. But what happens when you have to integrate or take those lessons or wounds from the counterpart and apply them into your own person? That's that moment where someone else's past almost feels like you're taking it. You start feeling someone else's past very, very deeply, because it feels like it's becoming integrated with your own. So even in these moments that the energy like feels like you're building that sense, it's like you're almost feeling a lot of these feelings that someone may have felt in those moments, and you're taking them on within yourself and you're having to process them. You know, it can feel very triggering, but these energies are processing through them by communicating on them. They're not trying to go back to they're not trying to open up someone else's old books in that way to be able to resolve something. Rather, they're amplifying, and they're building that energetic connection via reaffirming in the actions of the present how what someone experienced would not happen again. Like that is the gift of the commitment that we give one another, especially as it relates to navigating or holding one's own wounds and insecurities. We make them our own, and we are conscientious of them in that degree. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Queen of Wands in combination with our Knight of Swords in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? clarification coming through right now with our Nine of Wands. It's difficult, and especially right now for a lot of the energy that's in the heart of the divine union frequency. The energy in the heart of the divine union frequency, these are just a lot of breakthroughs that we're seeing in relationality to experiences from early traumas, early wounds. And what is happening here, even now, if these are spaces or places that someone did not want to confront in the past, it's not that the energetic trigger is completely gone. But what is showing that breakthrough point in something that feels like it's reached or received some kind of success metric here? This is that moment that one is able to look back on something and it doesn't feel like it has that much of an energetic impact. Right? It's like it is the toning down of that feeling. It is that moment of being able to take something that feels like it might have been insurmountable or unfaceable from the past and now being able to address it in such a way that it feels like it's still like, again, this energy is like it still hurts, it's still tender, it's still sensitive, but it doesn't feel like it is debilitating. Right? That is that breakthrough that a lot of the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency is having by doing this work right now. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into the divine union frequency, this is the affirmation, like this is the commitment. This is, I told you, these are not energies that are trying to like open old wounds, right? But there is energy here that like even in the process of integrating those aspects, even in the process of coming to feel like one's own experience is becoming like married effectively to another's, even in that moment, there's that desire or that ability or that hope that something that may feel like it was so difficult for someone, that wound that they're holding or carrying, that idea or aspect of energetically being able to heal something. And that's not coming from the desire of wanting to see someone changed, but that comes from that compassion space of seeing the energetic counterpart that's hurting in some way and that desire to alleviate that hurt. And a lot of that energy is being very mindful of navigating forward with that sense of compassion to make something easier, all for the hope of one day being able to energetically release it. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is in separation, a lot of this work to a certain extent has to do like with this is trust. Look at these energies. These are energies that feel like they're coming out of some profound healing moments here. And both of the energies, they're navigating forward with conscientiousness. They're being very energetically mindful. Why? Because they're encountering each other on a healing journey. So that same sense of mindfulness that we are identifying that is occurring right now for the energy that's coming into divine union is coming into play for energy that is, building forth and building towards one another at this time by learning, by understanding, right? Navigating, and if someone is feeling that sense of being like conscientious or cautious, not taking it personally, but almost navigating it with a sense of curiosity to better understand where someone's anxieties are, all for the sense of being able to build forth in a way that you can be mindful and alleviate them as you continue to come to know one another or heal something, especially if these are energies that are coming into a healing moment. Continuing to get clarification between our Queen of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Tower card in its upright. May I please have one card to clarify? We've got the Devil. Nobody's allowed to get triggered today, is all I'm going to say. All right. Nobody's allowed to get triggered. Okay. We've got our Devil card here. So one of the things that we see that needs to be navigated right now, particularly for a lot of the energy, particularly for a lot of the feminine energy, for all the energy, there's a lot of that feeling right now of confrontation of the self, right? Of navigating those parts of the self that are hard to navigate. And that's happening, I want to say, across all of the frequencies. So today is a day that you may be feeling like you have to navigate those feelings of like unhealthy coping mechanisms, bad modalities of thoughts, or even potentially past unhealed, unhealthy karmic connections, right? These are energies, like what are these energies doing right now? Are these energies projecting that outward? Are these energies projecting that outward? No. If these energies are in healing, they're confronting them from within. They're doing that work of confronting them from within. For feminine energy specifically, this could feel like a lot of that challenging space, because if this is a feminine energy that is feeling those points of instability, this could be a lot of the feminine energy recognizing their own tendencies of how they might become reactive at moments that they feel energetically unstable. But what is really impactful in relationality to feminine energy that is doing this path work? Feminine energy is noticing and navigating. What did we say was happening for a lot of the feminine energy? If these were spaces and places wherein you may be identifying that tendency that you may have, that when you become or feel energetically unstable, you potentially have that point of like letting the emotions act, like subjecting others to that, right? As opposed to articulating upon it. That ability of recognizing the work of not allowing yourself to get triggered. This is the feminine energy, almost feeling some of that energetic instability rising up, but then almost catching themselves, right? Like catching themselves in that moment, identifying it, saying, yeah, this is how I might have reacted to something in the past, right? And that is the feminine energy doing their work, even in separation right now, of navigating through their own doubts and fears. That is allowing for a lot of that energetic breakthrough if these are new connections. Because this is the feminine energy that's leading forth in recognizing what is within, but facing it from within, and then asking oneself, is something I'm bringing forward something that feels like it is productive? Does it feel like it is something that can be activated upon? Because this is the feminine energy recognizing that when you bring forth an emotionality that lacks purpose or lacks clarity, that sometimes that expression of the instability, that's that moment that you don't alleviate it, it just kind of expresses and expands upon everything around you. So feminine energy is also working on their own energetic mindfulness to a certain degree. And a lot of this is the feminine energy like navigating their own triggers, their own doubts, their own fears, right? That's happening across the frequencies right now. While for masculine, you may be also experiencing this, but a lot of this could be more in that expansion point. If you're having a moment in separation where you're having a breakthrough point with feminine that's able to articulate through what they are identifying or feeling, as opposed to feeling like they're subjecting you to it, you are also recognizing that your own ability to do so is also facilitating the feminine's ability. These are energies right now that are mirroring one another, right? Masculine feeling, if this is a feminine that feels more trepidatious, that often creates that sense of masculine starting to feel like they want to energetically take something personally. So we see that even now, these energies in separation, navigating their own triggers, navigating their own hurdles, articulating upon how they feel, as opposed to subjecting another to how they feel or reacting from how they feel. Simply from the most difficult thing, right? The most vulnerable thing, which is the act of communication, right? Just communicating upon it. So we see even now that this is some heavy, challenging energy right now. But a lot of that challenging space feels like it's challenging yourself in the process. And a lot of it is the observational point of the energy in separation, looking at past experience and not wanting to repeat an energetic lesson. While for masculine and feminine energy right now coming into divine union, this could be more of that feeling or the equivalent point of feeling the energetic trigger of another's past that can sometimes feel overwhelming, because when we take on the wounds of another, we can't necessarily do anything to alleviate them so much as reaffirm our commitment to seeing and observing them and letting our actions speak louder than words. So we see even now something about navigating that. It feels like it's creating that sense of an internal trigger in the counterparts, because there's that moment that it's like almost like that desire, that wish to take or alleviate a pain from another creates that reactivity point in the self. But what are these energies doing? They don't want to make something energetically harder for someone by adding to their own reactivity to it. So instead, they're affirming their commitment to energetically healing something and allowing time to be the expression on being able to carry something in such a way that even though it is heavy and hard, these are energies that welcome that energetic hurdle or burden because they're doing it for one another in the process. While for masculine and feminine energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is tearing a wall down. This is removing something that you may have been holding yourself accountable for in such a way that you're almost forgiving yourself through the act of being able to see something in a way that you're saying either it wasn't energetically my fault, right? And the moment that one is able to observe that is the moment that one is able to navigate through that, because that's almost the moment that you're taking something that you may have been holding with a sense of like anger or frustration or blame or fear, and you're able to basically abolish it in the moment that you see it in such a way and say, I've been thinking about it in the wrong way. I've been holding myself energetically accountable for something that wasn't mine to hold. And that's the minute that you take that unhealthy modality or that bad, that unhealed part of yourself, and it goes away, right? Because that's that moment that you say, like, I release that. I release that concept of myself. I release that shame. I release that blame. So this could feel very like, this could be a very empowering tower moment for a lot of the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our tower card in combination with our 7 of swords. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our King of Swords, and it's upright. So what happens in those moments that we're able to look at something from the deep past, some kind of wound or trauma that we've been holding, and we're able to reorient on it? I told you, these energies aren't even doing this for the sake of being able to do something in the present. It's all about the mindset it creates in the moment. So for masculine energy, if these are wounds that you are carrying, wherein again, you are blaming yourself from some very earlier aspect to something that occurred, like something that felt like an act of rejection or blame, but you're now identifying with something that was created within you because of a feminine that was wounded, that almost allowed that wound to expand upon you. The minute you have empathy for the feminine is the minute that you can forgive yourself for that, because that empathy and that understanding releases you from the feeling of blame or guilt, because it's coming from that place of deep empathy and understanding as to the source of a wound that immediately allows for the affirmation of empowerment and also the conviction of never creating that wound again in the feminine that may have created that in the first place. So we see even now that sense of becoming one's highest version of self is very much at play for a lot of the masculine energy doing that work right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. While for feminine energy, that same effort, if this is some deep healing wherein you're recognizing that there were spaces and places where you feel like you were wounded because you changed who you were to suit someone else's energetic needs, that is a moment that feels very incredibly empowering, because this is the feminine energy recognizing and reminding themselves of making sure that they move towards masculine energy that appreciates them for who they are, instead of trying to cultivate who they aspire them to be. So even now, that's the feminine energy. Why is the feminine energy having some of those breakthroughs right now deep in the heart of the divine union frequency? I told you, it's not because of the counterpart, but it is via the connection with the masculine that is affirmed to doing that same work, that allows for the clarity of understanding in one's pathwork far enough that you can do that type of healing, because you're seeing the expression of what heals in the moment that builds the counterbalance on what effectively harmed you in the first place. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, You're effectively having this happen in the moment, and it can feel more triggering because these situations and circumstances aren't ones that you're intentionally navigating towards. You're experiencing them more in the moment. So even now, there could be that moment that like you're feeling like a great deal of emotions, right? It's almost that feeling that you build that sense of like overwhelm, because it's not the fact that like these aren't energies where like the more they know about the other, like these aren't energies that are moving away from one another in that sense of knowing more. These are energies that continue to come together. And even in those moments of being able to navigate and hold the hard things that the other contains, holding those insecurities, this becomes the energetic tie that binds, because these are energies that are recognizing and seeing one another, even the difficulties, even the challenges, even the weaknesses, and they're just holding on to one another even tighter. So we see even now, like the only thing to be navigating here is having to, not allow that expansion point in what you're feeling, feel like it overwhelms you, but almost allowing that to ground you right now is really important, because a lot of that speaks towards the fact that this energy does so much work to bring balance to one another, right? So we see even now like that commitment and that affirmation and doing better is almost helping these energies, even as they navigate that experience that feels like it creates that sense of what could sometimes feel like a little bit of crisis at the time that you're moving into divine union, right? While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation, this is the energy that's being very open and honest. Like I told you, this is energy that is building bridges right now in new connections by being completely authentic about what's occurred in the past. These are not energies that are pulling punches. These are energies that are being very, very authentic about where they are in the healing journey. And that ability to do so is reaffirming the commitment to each other on not repeating those lessons. So we see even now, if these are new energetic connections that are being made at a point of separation, this is almost the feminine energy that's almost saying, if there's something about me and my experiences that moves the masculine energy away from me, then that's the feminine saying, well, good riddance, right? That's the feminine saying, well, there we go. That's all I needed to see, because this is a feminine energy that's working through a moment. Potentially there's some healing here, a feminine feeling of masculine that moved away from them when things got hard, right? So how is the feminine energy building forth on that? This is the feminine energy saying, never again will I be in connection with masculine that moves away from me when things get difficult. And this is the feminine energy almost articulating on that experience with masculine by not hiding where they are energetically. This is the feminine being like, this is where I am right now. Are you sure you want to be here? Are you sure you want to navigate that? And what is the masculine energy doing if these are new energetic connections that are happening in separation? The masculine energy is saying, absolutely. Let me tell you a little bit about mine, right? These are energies that are showing each other those wounds, saying, yeah, I can navigate this. I can handle this. I'm not someone that moves away from things because they get difficult. I'm someone who moves closer. I'm someone who has curiosity. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 7 of Swords in combination with our 9 of Wands and its upright. A lot of this titchy energy today. I'm just telling you. One card to clarify, please. Emperor in its reversal. So, masculine and feminine energy, even in separation right now. It's not the fact that you're not feeling energetically triggered, right? If these are energies right now in separation, if there are new energetic connections, if feminine energy is showing hesitancy, right? This is that work of the masculine saying, I can't take that personally. I have to recognize that if a feminine energy is being trepidatious to me, it's not something that I should just embody or take as a personal mark. Like, that's a masculine saying, I have to approach that with curiosity and understanding, right? Because that is, again, the masculine energy that's on the healing journey, that feels like that when they're on the healing journey, you have to navigate for the wounds that were put upon the feminine by the masculine energy that wasn't in a space or state of healing, right? This is like the hurdle for a lot of the masculine energy and separation. It's like the minute that you come into healing, it feels like those moments of having to take accountability for all of the masculine energy that may have been experienced prior to this point that wasn't healed, right? It's like you got to put all of it. It's like, oh no, like that's that moment. You have to like put it all on your back, if you will, you know? But what is the masculine energy doing at these times or in these moments, even in separation? You know, this is the painful energetic hurdle with the masculine, which is almost looking towards the feminine in separation and saying, I understand your trepidation. I understand your caution. I understand your experience. I also understand that there's very little I can say or do that can alleviate it because so much of it is true. So what is the masculine energy in separation doing at this time to build those bridges with the feminine? Clarity. Consistency. Clarity. Consistency. Clarity. Consistency. Right? Because that's that moment of the expression of saying the only way I can show you is through more than words. And so what is the masculine almost saying to the feminine? I'm asking for the opportunity for me to be able to show you beyond words, right? So we see even now that that's like what's happening here. And even now that's the feminine who maybe even be recognizing that this is why it needs to come into that point of resiliency, right? Because this is the feminine energy that recognizes that they have to be a little bit confident. They have to, even that moment of moving forward in trust requires that sense. That's a bit of the trust exercise with the new energy of coming in with masculine, which is saying there's always that moment that like there is that uncertainty. And the feminine energy is navigating how to forge through that moment, right? How to build that sense of trust enough to be able to even allow the masculine to show via their own integrity that they're coming from a place of integrity. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, this is more of that feeling of the perception shift that occurs from the moment that you entered the divine union frequency, that suddenly feels to a certain extent like everything outside the divine union frequency was a lesson, right? Like it's almost that moment of being like everything before this was a lesson. But that ability of holding a state of energetic compassion to a certain degree, like that is the amplification point, right? Because even now we see that these are energies that, like, if in the divine union frequency, they recognize that their own perception is changing just from being in that frequency. The perception that we build like within one another or with one another is almost like that moment that feels like the insular experience that we share via the counterpart. So we see even now, like that moment of building into that sense of care and compassion for another. Sometimes it can be very triggering. For the masculine, it can feel very vulnerable, because what happens when you take the wounds of the feminine on? You're like, I've got to like hurt around something that I can't do something about. I have to feel their vulnerability much like it's my own, right? That is the hard aspect of being in that space. That's the vibration of love, right? Experiencing the vulnerability of another can sometimes feel energetically overwhelming. So we see that a lot of the masculine energy is working on that deep level of healing, coming into divine union, is in accepting that is pretty conditional and par for the course of being in the divine union frequency, right? Being in the divine union frequency, being in the vibration of love is almost, again, like walking around with like an open wound, right? It's like that moment of being like, I now have a wound. It's that feeling of empathy, right? While for feminine, it is coming into that state of resilience. For the feminine energy, it's that moment that challenges them to be stronger. Because again, this is the feminine energy that's holding the wounds of the masculine. They're building that sense of knowing that they are the security point of the masculine. So that is the moment of the feminine. Not wanting to move from a place of anxiety, but almost becoming energetically stronger for the sake of them. This is how these energies heal one another, by embracing the qualities and characteristics of the counterpart energy. While for masculine and feminine energy, that is deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, you guys are knocking down walls. You're going back real far. You're taking things that you are holding blame on, and you're not blaming yourself anymore. And that's harder for the masculine energy, because those moments that you say, I didn't do something, this is why this type of healing is so hard for masculine, because it's easier. Remember how I said it's easier for feminine to say, I did something wrong because I can change it from within? It's harder for masculine to say, I didn't do anything that deserved that. I didn't do anything that warranted that, because that's the moment of the masculine healing something, but the moment of healing makes them feel more vulnerable. It makes you feel more weak. So again, much like the act of the feminine who externalizes the wound, the moment the masculine heals a deep quantum wound is when they say, I didn't deserve that, I didn't do it, which is almost taking the wound in and allowing oneself to experience the vulnerability and surrender in accepting that that was something that occurred, that hurt, right? So both of these energies healing in that deep way. Feminine is doing it right now on the quantum level by doing the opposite, saying that wasn't something I needed to change. That was something I experienced, pushing the wound out. So both of these energies right now knocking down walls, except masculine is doing so by feeling something in a way that they haven't allowed themselves to feel it before. And feminine's doing it by rejecting something that they were feeling that they know isn't true. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Devil card in combination with our King of Swords. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with this is the Eight of Swords. You're probably wondering at this point, why did you bother trying to heal this in the first place? Masculine energy, if you're working on this, you're probably asking yourself, why did I bother to heal this in the first place if it was going to hurt more? Sometimes things need to hurt to heal. Sometimes things need to hurt to heal. Yeah. Right? And this is the fact of the masculine almost saying to themselves and recognizing if this is some like deep healing, that affirmation of understanding, that recognition point. Like that is that moment that almost like is the reaffirmation of the masculine, almost telling oneself, saying, it's okay. It's okay for me to feel vulnerable. It's okay for me not to feel like I have to be energetically strong all the time. Because that is the masculine energy that's almost understanding that in that deep healing space, that when the masculine is in that modality, where the reason the masculine moves into that space automatically of saying, I must have done something to experience a hurt. That is the masculine that feels like in a way they've protected themselves, right? Because that's the masculine almost says, it's fine, even when something hurts me, it's because I should have done something to control it better, right? So even now, like a lot of the masculine energy, recognizing their own tendency, this masculine going, this is how I'm healing it. I need to feel it to heal it. I need to feel it to heal it. When I don't feel it, that's when I start to, that's where the wound starts to fester. That's when the wound starts to affect me, and that's when the wound limits me, because that's the masculine saying, I need to be allowing myself to feel the expression or expansion point of experiencing the wound, because through that act of feeling, I'm able to heal it. While for the feminine, this is the opposite. This is the feminine in that deep healing space saying, I need to recognize the difference between what I can change from within versus what's happening from without. And this is the feminine energy saying, I internalize too much. I blame myself too much. I come into that space of assuming I did something that deserves something to occur. So this is the feminine also coming into that space of healing and saying, I need to recognize the difference between what I'm doing that needs to change versus what is externally happening. Both of these energies in that deep healing space, challenging themselves, much like the energy in separation, except the energy in the heart of the divine union frequency is doing this on like a quantum level. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is the most chaotic energy right now. Because this is something that you're potentially feeling in the tangible space. And it has to do with that feeling of like, the sense of like, anxiety that becomes created when you really start to build a bond with someone, where not only do you feel that expression of how much you care about them, but it's almost all of those doubts and fears that start to rise up, because it's almost that sense of energetically desiring to like have that sense of protectiveness, and it's creating a reactivity space in both of these energies that they're trying to work through. Masculine feeling very triggered and taking on the wounds of the feminine and wanting to do something about them, but almost saying like, no, like I just need to create an environment around the feminine where they recognize that those experiences or wounds are not going to happen again. Feminine wanting to come into that same modality of coming to like defend forward towards a masculine and saying like, no, I just need to create that space or place wherein the masculine understands, like I'm navigating the strong emotions that I'm feeling. And this is almost a feminine saying, I'm trying to navigate the strong emotions that I'm feeling from the masculine without burdening them with the strong emotions, right? So both of these energies right now doing that work of navigating through their own emotional space without burdening the counterpart with them. Masculine and feminine energy right now that's in separation, this is all about trust. That same work is all about trust. These are energies that are understanding the experiences of one another. And they're navigating a space where it's like when you meet someone who's healing, it's like, here are all my wounds. And trying to be very energetically mindful. But what we see is happening even here is there's so much caution and trepidation. And for them, I have to say, there may be some conversations right now happening in separation of someone saying like, I know that nothing I say to you will be able to make you effectively trust me enough to be able to like build forward. But I'd like the opportunity to show you. Right? It's really giving me a lot of that type of energy right now in relationality, the communication between masculine and feminine right now in separation, right? And feminine being like, I observe that, I understand that. Clarification between our King of Swords in combination with our Emperor in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. I can't like that, the destroy, that's a lot of that work that the energy and separation is making right now, right? Because even now, like this energy, they're recognizing that there's a lot of that like feeling of energetic choice. And even now, you know, in separation, the masculine energy that's working towards the feminine, that's that moment that feels very difficult, because I told you a lot of the masculine energy and healing right now, you're being extremely vulnerable towards feminine. But what is the masculine energy experiencing in that moment of being vulnerable towards feminine? It feels like a lot of the masculine is feeling like that deep strength that happens in a moment of expressing vulnerability. Like almost feeling that sense of like a confidence in the self, saying like, wow, like I'm like, there's almost a masculine like patting themselves on the head. Like being like, that was really hard. I'm really proud of myself for doing that. Like it's giving me a little bit of that. Because even that sense, like that's a masculine feeling like they've accomplished like a huge hurdle on your own energetic journey. Because I told you, the masculine energy in a point of healing isn't healing. I mean, they're healing for the sake of building better connections, but you also recognize that you're doing it for your own self. So what happens in that moment where you come from a place of vulnerability and authenticity, and you recognize that you surrender the outcome at that exact moment. The masculine energy that's being authentic with the feminine in that way is having that moment of saying like I did it, right? Like that's the masculine going, recognizing, potentially being like, I did it. Like that's me doing it. Like that's a masculine feeling that sense of accomplishment in that moment, because that's almost the masculine energy feeling like they've overcome their own hurdle, right? Regardless of what occurs after that moment. And so for the feminine energy, seeing a masculine energy that's open in that way of, again, trying to lead forward to the feminine and leaving that choice up to the feminine. That's also the feminine saying, this is different, right? Because that's the feminine that doesn't feel like the masculine's leading towards them like via means to an end, but almost feeling that amplification of choice, feels like that moment of empowerment for the feminine, because that's a feminine recognizing that they don't need to just accommodate towards the masculine. That the moment of doing so, the moment of articulating a need, creates the moment of the masculine, creating the opportunity to provide that need to the feminine. So even in this moment, these are energies that are seeing one another, and they're feeling that sense of accomplishment in doing something that was difficult and seeing the results of that outcome in a positive way. While for masculine, and not because of what it will result in, but just feeling feeling the success within the self of having like cleared one's own personal hurdle. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is that energetic equivalent of continuing to build forward and build, like this is the energy that's like gaining momentum. The energy that's coming into the divine union is just growing very fast deep into the heart of the divine union. And it's coming from a deep understanding of one another. But this is that energy that even in these moments, this is a lot of energy that feels like their own commitment towards one another is like reaffirming that capacity to feel, even in spaces or places that they may have recognized in the past they would have moved away from something. This is that tie that binds, because these energies are holding on to one another in those moments. And even as they're feeling that like overwhelming expansion point in how they're feeling towards another, it's almost that sense of feeling like I care about you so much. Like it's almost that feeling of saying like I care about you so much, it sometimes scares me. Like, right? Like that's what we mean when we say that, because it's almost that moment of saying like my capacity to care for you is so great that like I also embody your own anxieties. I also embody your own fears. Your fears become my fears. I have to make my heart bigger to be able to hold you. So we see even now that those energies, they're feeling that and they're allowing that to occur, and it's reaffirming their own commitment towards each other in doing so. While for the energy right now, deep in the heart of the divine union, this is just knocking down some huge walls in relationality to some past trauma, all from the way that you're looking at something. You've come far enough on your own journey, especially in connection with the counterpart, that ability to look and see something from a place of healing. Sometimes we can only make new decisions when we realize that we've come far enough on our own healing journey that we can see something in the right way. And for masculine and feminine energy, that moment's effectively come for a lot of the energy deep in the heart and the divine union frequency that's allowing that lightening potentially in something that you've been carrying with you for a long time, that you are holding yourself energetically accountable on. Final card for today's spread between our Eight of Swords in combination with our Judgment card. May I please have one card to clarify? Now, for the energy deep in the heart of the divine union, it's not like looking back on something and having a different perception suddenly makes it all go away. It's not like it all goes away, but it makes it a lot easier to carry. It's that moment of looking at something in a way and saying, I've been carrying this like so wrong this whole time. I've been carrying it like this. This was ridiculous. I've been breaking my back over this. What if I just, oh gosh, that's so much easier, right? So just that shifting. Sometimes it's not about removing the pain. Sometimes it's just shifting how we're carrying it. And we see even now that for a lot of the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency right now, that energetic shift in terms of where and how you're carrying some of those old wounds is allowing for a lot of peace to be brought into some spaces and places here for both masculine and feminine. For masculine, it might be taking that wound that you are externalizing and bringing it within, allowing yourself to feel the full expansion point of it. And feminine, pushing it without. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, this is a lot of the energetic equivalent of just feeling the full magnitude of coming into divine union, which again feels like it's expansive, right? It feels like you're growing, but it also feels like it closes you in, because again, it creates that sense or that space of the energy outside of yourself that you don't have energetic control of, but you care about to such a capacity and degree, right? That is the expansion and expression of love, which is almost that moment that feels like, again, it grows, but it also feels like it holds you, right? It feels like it's like the beautiful chain, right? It's like the tie that binds, but it is a joyful binding. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation, this is a lot of energy that's recognized that they're ready to move away from something. This is a lot of energy that recognizes in the moment of articulating and feeling that sense of having had an accomplishment point from something that may have felt like it was a problem in the past, a hurdle that's been crossed. This is energy that now feels that sense of true closure. I told you, closure is a quiet door. Sometimes closure is that moment that we realize that we've healed from something in the way that we're navigating something and recognizing that something that we were experiencing has now become a very valuable, important lesson that has changed us and changed who we are and how we experience the world. And while that doesn't make something easier, it does bring a level or degree of catharsis into play because it makes it easier for us to energetically carry. Final card for today's spread, bottom of the deck, is everybody's just committed on healthy karmic relationships. Everybody's just like, no more unhealed karmic relationships, which is beautiful, right? But it's also like, it's hard, right? It's hard because what happens when we become very energetically mindful? Like everybody's just being like, I'll put it this way. You know, the problem with situations or circumstances like this is like when you become very energetically mindful, it's also that moment that recognizes that like even in the best way of facilitating forward on that, there's some kind of moments of harm that are energetically unavoidable, right? That's the hurdle. That's the energetic hurdle around things, is even in that modality of trying to move in a way that you're trying to navigate in a way that feels positive. There's always that feeling that like there's no way you can energetically move without something getting harmed in the process. So we see even now like something about that coming into play today. It can feel like it's really energetically triggering because a lot of that has to do, I think, with a lot of conversations around intentionality across all of the frequencies, right? And are almost like, you know, in amplifying. And again, this is why the energy there's the energy that's healing on the quantum level is doing this, because they're looking at something with the empathy of the energy that caused the harm in the first place. The perspective of being able to see something from outside the context of the self is what's allowing that to occur. Sometimes it makes things harder, right? Because it's not easing the healing, it's changing the healing. The energy coming into the divine union frequency, that is that expansion point. I told you what happened. Even the healthy karmic energy, it's got its own hurdles to navigate, because even in that modality, like it feels like it's that expansive, joyful burden, if you will. Well, for the energy in separation right now, it's really trying to show each other that you're coming towards each other in a healing way, and not that healing is some kind of false front that you're trying to put forward. Like that's a lot of the hurdle there. Being like, how do I show someone that I'm authentic in my own healing journey? That is our daily collective read for today. I'd like to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never ask you to inbox me. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website, so I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me today and sharing with me in these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow. Also, just a couple of updates. Thank you to everyone who joined us in our class last night. It was such a delight to be able to walk you guys through the journey of the magician. I'm happy to announce that our next class will be held on Wednesday, May June 16th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. And that class will focus on the next card in the tarot, the High Priestess, one of my favorite cards. I'm so excited to be able to teach you guys this card. All you need to do if you'd like to become a part of those classes is become a paid subscriber to my Substack, graystrega.substack.com. Your subscription will grant you access to the free live class, the live class that we have each month that focuses on a card in the tarot. You also will have access to any of the previous classes. So if you missed the last two classes that we did, if you want to catch up on the journey of the Fool or the Magician, you have plenty of time to do so before our next class. You'll also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students if there's anything that you see in that course material that you want some clarification on, or even some notes or some questions that you may have on your own tarot journey at the moment. Also, if you go ahead and become a founding member to my Substack, not only do you get a discount on the full year's worth of classes, but you also receive a free one-on-one mentorship reading with me, wherein we will assess where you are on your own particular spiritual and tarot journey, and I'll give you the best information on how to best utilize the class and your pathwork going forward. I'm really excited to be able to begin this journey with all of you. Thank you to everybody who's already joining us there. And even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there just to stay abreast of any new offerings or opportunities or events that we may be holding. Also, just wanted to announce thank you to everybody who entered our contest last month for a free 15-minute reading. I am going to be announcing the winner of that contest this week on TikTok, and I will also put it in the newsletter on Substack. Thank you to everybody who entered, but we are doing a new contest this month, and it is a little different. So this contest, we are once again returning to the survey, and anyone who fills out the survey gets an entry. And not only do you get an entry, but whoever wins that contest this month, I will be asking them who referred them to take the contest. So not only will someone be winning a free reading with me, but whoever referred the individual to take the survey will also be winning a reading. So if you've already filled out the survey and would like additional entries, now would be a great opportunity to send that survey to some friends who you think might also value a tarot retreat with me. I would love to get their input on where we should go. I'm really excited to have this offering that I'll be offering you guys. And I have some ideas on where we should go, but I really want to get your insight. And thank you guys again to everyone who's already filled out that survey. Bink is in my bio. Finally, I'm really excited to announce that we're offering a few new offerings for my clients. I've had a lot of requests that we start offering mentorship classes. We are now offering those mentorship classes. Those classes can be purchased on an individual one-on-one basis, or if you would like more weekly support, you can purchase a full month's worth of mentorship classes. That is one 45-minute class per week at a discounted rate for the package. Those classes are oriented and focused on whatever aspect of the spiritual and tarot journey you feel you would like to best focus on. So they're very customizable. They're very unique per individual. I can only take a certain amount of them, so I will be keeping that number very limited, but thank you to everybody who has been interested in that, and I look forward to working with you. Also, for those of you who are seeking more consistent weekly tarot guidance, I am now offering weekly tarot insights, which is again a package of you four tarot readings that you can purchase, a 30-minute reading each week that will allow you to have a more consistent experience in relationality to where you are on a week-by-week basis on your own journey. Again, thank you guys so much. I'm creating these classes due to a lot of requests. Thank you guys for everyone who's giving me this advice on what you'd like to see, and I'm really looking forward to being able to offer these to you going forward. That said, thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing with me in these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow.